What was the analogy you used earlier? It's like putting Jeremy Clarkson on a time trial bike.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, Jeremy Clarkson can drive any car. Well, if he can fit in the bloody thing. You know, because there's the car. Oh, look, it looks cool, whatever. It's a sports car. Jeremy Clarkson comes plodding along with his big gangly legs, opens a door, shoves himself in like, I don't know, filling sausage stuffing or something, gets in, manages to close the door. But once the door's closed, from the outside, it doesn't matter if Jeremy Clarkson or Lewis Hamilton's driving the car looks like the car, right? So, yeah. But you put him on a bike, you can't hide Jeremy Clarkson.
Welcome to Cycling Demystified, brought to you by Foundation Bike Fit and Frequency Cycle Works, the podcast where we help you take your cycling to the next level by sharing the knowledge from experienced bike fitters, mechanics, and the hidden players within the bike industry.
All right, welcome back to the Cycling Demystified podcast with me. Oh, wait, I'm just being passed a cup of tea. Sorry, thank you. Very thank you.
Very thank you.
I'm so enamoured that I can't even get my words out.
I just didn't want it to go cold.
Anyway,
he
can't do a
waste a brew.
podcast without a cup of tea, can we?
No.
So yeah, welcome back to the podcast. Who have we got in the studio? We've got
Dream team.
Dream Team.
Ev,
All present and correct today, aren't we?
Matt,
Excellent.
Way. Oh, that's it now.
That's it.
Excellent. I thought we'd have a silly podcast today, just because it's what day is it? Wednesday?
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Is it a day?
My God, I don't even know what day it is. So we're having a silly day today, and since we've been treated to so much cycling recently with the Tour de France, followed by the Olympics, and now we've got the Tour de Femme on, and the Vuelta coming up.
Oh yeah.
There's been so much to look at, so many pros on bikes. So we thought we'd discuss some of the silly trends that we've seen in the peloton and riders thrown around on TV, and just discuss, pick apart, have a
Berate.
discussion around. And I think actually this all started from the lead up to Leadville 100, which is a mountain bike race, 100-mile mountain bike race over on the other side of the pond in the US. And what did you see, Matt? You got you fuming.
Stupidity. That's what I've seen. Where do you want me to start?
Go on then, start from the top,
So,
or the drops.
Leadville. So I didn't realise Leadville was actually a mountain bike race until quite recently. I thought it was a running race. But that's my biases.
Do
But
they
it's,
do
yeah,
a
so it's
running race?
100-mile
Yeah.
running race,
Yeah.
and the bike race is 100-mile as well.
Yeah.
But plenty of stupidity coming out from gravel in general at the moment, and the lines are being blurred between gravel and mountain bike.
It's the Wild West.
It is
Literally
the
new
Wild West.
Frontier.
So
New frontier of I don't know what. But
turn my phone on, gravitate towards YouTube, and to my disgust, the algorithm has fed me some absolute dross of a bike setup. These bike chats from Leadville, one of which was I think it was a Santa Cruz hardtail, which had 37mm drop bars on it, a suspension fork, and I'm looking at this thing, and a dropper post. I'm looking at this thing going, what is it? Is it a mountain bike? Is it a gravel bike? What are you supposed to like? What is it? What are you trying to be?
Was it a full length, like 100mm travel?
Yeah, it was a
suspension?
Sid Ultimate fork.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a cross country road fork, not cross country mountain bike fork. And I'm looking at this thing going, are you a gravel bike? Are you a mountain bike? What are you trying to be? Bring it up
like
on the screen.
Santa Cruz.
There's a Santa Cruz something or other. I can't remember the bike.
Probably highball.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But basically looking at this thing going, just because you can, it doesn't necessarily mean you should.
Oh my God.
Yeah, here we go. We've got it on the screen.
Keegan Swenson.
Keegan Swenson, you have a lot to answer for, sir.
But he won it, though.
So
he's got rotated bars.
Yeah, so he's got the rotated inward hoods,
Yeah.
super narrow drop bars, RockShox Sid Ultimate fork, and the new SRAM 1x13 axis shifting with the UDH
No dropper post, though.
No dropper post. I respect that.
Oh, and your favourite seat post?
My favourite seat post, an envy seat post. Shocker. And then some ridiculously stubby but negative angled stem. I'm just looking at this thing going, what is it? Is it a mountain bike? Is it a gravel bike?
So I can't quite see the tyre size either. Is it 2.4?
Looks like
2.3,
2.3, something like that. It's got Maxxis Aspen gravel tyres, which is quite a new tyre, I think, from Maxxis. But yeah, so the point being, and there's lots of people doing this now. I spotted a Trek Super Caliber full sus cross-country mountain bike with drop bars on as well. And it's kind of like, well, you've taken a bike and turned it into something that it isn't. And why would you do that? So that is a stupid trend that I've spotted. People turning
there's a lot of them. There's an
into
Allied,
drop
there's
bar bikes.
Yeah, Super Caliber. So all these guys get together and have like a little chat beforehand and be like, hey, I'm going drop bar, mate. You should do it too. That'll ruffle some feathers.
But yeah, so I was massively offended by that. And, yeah, it's just.
And why are you so offended, Matt?
Why am I so offended? Because it's the wrong tool for the job. So we're always talking about bikes as tools, and you have to pick the right tool for the right job. And I thought this was the whole reason gravel bikes existed. And now here we are in 2024, it's a brave new world, putting drop bars on mountain bikes. I just don't agree with it.
So here's the thing.
It's been done before.
It's been done before many times.
It was offensive.
It was a bad idea then.
It was a bad idea and offensive then. So why are we now doing it again?
There are already gravel bikes with suspension forks.
Exactly.
So why has he used that? Like, if you can win that race on a cross-country bike with drop bars, it can't be very gnarly, can it?
Exactly. It's basically a glorified road ride.
It's a gravel ride. So why didn't he use a gravel bike?
But there's the whole thing, right? So we're looking at this lad, Keegan Swanson, with his very nicely built Santa Cruz and his very narrow handlebars on a bike that's designed for probably something around 740 to 780 mil bars.
Yeah.
The handling of that bike is going to be it's going to handle like a sack of spanners. It's just going to be awful. You've basically just ruined a perfectly good bike that was designed to do a job. And it's like hanging a picture frame, isn't it, with a sledgehammer. Like, you can do it, but just because you can, it don't mean you should.
What tyres have you got on there?
Maxxis Aspen. So it's
like
a
basically
hard
slicks.
pack cross-country tyre,
Yeah, he could have done it on a gravel bike and it would have probably taken, I don't know, what, half an hour off his time.
I mean, he won the race last year,
so he's winning the race because he's strong, not because he's on the right bike. That's the argument, isn't it?
Yeah, but like if you've won it already and you're like, oh, what can I do next year?
See, all it serves to do is, and obviously because he's using the new SRAM red and all that stuff, it's a marketing gimmick. It's basically somebody's come along and said, oh, he's sponsored by whatever. Well, he's obviously sponsored by SRAM because he's got RockShox forks, and they're basically said, okay, if you use this and then you enter this race, it's going to be all over all the cycling media, and then everybody's going to want to buy that stuff.
But here's the thing I have, right? One part of me, a great part of me, is vastly offended by all this stuff, but a small part of me is like, fair play. Like, you're making what is already something quite difficult even more difficult by using the wrong bike.
So here's where it becomes a problem, and this is why it's a silly trend, not a useful trend.
Yeah.
He is super strong, pro, semi-pro, I don't know what he is.
Probably has quite a bit of talent at riding a bicycle.
Probably quite
both
a bit
in
of talent.
terms of strength and handling.
Won the race.
Yeah.
Perhaps some also some, extracurricular.
But he's clearly got some strength, some talent, some bike handling skills,
fine,
all that kind of stuff.
Because if you put, I don't know, Remco or Filippo Ganna on a steel bike, steel time trial bike, they'll probably still win those races, right? If they've got their position and they've got some disc wheels and whatever, they'll still go fast.
What we're saying is it's a silly trend because whatever he's riding, he's probably going to do quite well anyway. And
the problem with that is that after he wins that, suddenly people like us get a bunch of people coming to us saying, "Oh, can I put a drop bar on my mountain bike?" No, you can't. You can't handle it. Like very experienced. He's been riding for, I don't know how long he's been riding for, and he's very strong and he's trained up and everything. When you've got somebody who has no core strength and all of a sudden just wants to try out, has got a big wallet but no, you know, mobility, and suddenly they're just like got these crazy ideas, they want to try all this stuff, and it doesn't work for them, then they blame the people that put it together.
Why are we moaning about
That's
this?
my
You're
problem.
going to put the bike together.
That's
and
fine.
Get paid for
I
it.
get paid either way. But you know, what I want is for somebody to roll out of here on something that they're going to really enjoy, and not come back in like 3 weeks and start oh, I need to change something. Oh, it's not going to it's not going to be right for me. Whatever. So
the greatest teacher is
experience.
making mistakes.
Yeah. But I think this is a part of a wider trend of narrower handlebars. We've not just seen this in gravel races like Leadville or whatever, we've also seen this at the Olympics in the velodrome in the past couple of weeks with some very, very extreme handlebars and extreme positions and a lot of crashing.
Yeah, there seems to have been a lot.
Is that just me, or has there just been a lot of crashing?
Okay, two things. Narrow handlebars, disc brakes. In the last 10 years, I think we've seen a lot more crashes in professional bike racing. And also stupid crashes. There's always been crashes.
Like crashes
that
didn't need to happen.
Crashes that didn't need to happen,
Right.
and also crashes at higher speeds because of loss of control, inexperience, and also the illusion of more effective braking. People tend to brake later, so they're still going faster when they actually hit something. So that literally in the last, 5 years or so, there's been some quite high profile, quite serious crashes in professional bike racing.
Well, Tour of the Basque Country this year.
Well, there was that,
Yeah.
but even before that, like the previous couple of years, Tour de France has had some really, really high speed, big crashes. And now in track, suddenly we've sort of seen, again, always crashing, but we've seen some crashes that you kind of like look at it and think, they should have really been able to stay upright if it wasn't for their little praying mantis position.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think the overall message, I think, would be that the danger, as you've already kind of alluded to, is that people see stuff on TV. It's a bit like watching F1 and wanting to go out and buy an F1 car and drive it around town.
Or just a high performance car, and we see that all the time. People they street race and then they kill people, or they wrap it around a tree.
Yeah, but I don't know. Bikes are a little bit more accessible than F1 cars. So the exciting thing is that it's kind of like the pros' jobs to push the boundaries, like do stupid stuff, do crazy things in the name of finding those marginal gains and so on. If you're Keegan Svensson and you've won like Leadville before, how are you going to get faster? You're going to try and find some kind of gain, unless you're just going to go in there and try and get your FTP even higher or something like that. Or the easiest gains are kind of from, at the moment the trend seems to be from aerodynamics. Even like Pauline Ferrand-Prévot was wearing aero overshoes during the mountain bike race, and the Olympics, and she won.
Yeah, but
but even so, it's the pros' jobs to kind of push the boundaries and do extreme things, and it's our jobs to kind of observe and just acknowledge that they are pretty extreme, and if we want to have a go for it, but just know where you're at. If you haven't got your basics right, then it's probably not going to turn out with great results. But if you want to have a go, fair enough.
There's a couple
have
of
a
costs.
go, see what happens.
There's a couple of costs to it. There's the financial cost, and then there's also the
but it's not my
possibility
money.
of long-term injury, right? If you go and try and ride a bike that you're not prepared for.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, but at the same time, trends are trends. So by the time they've spent their time on that bike and in a city position, they've probably moved on to the next one. But it's not my responsibility to make sure that to babysit everyone and say, oh, I don't go ride up to people in the park and say, hey, you shouldn't be doing that.
Do you not?
I tried once and it didn't turn out nice.
You got cancelled.
But, you know, like really 38 mil drop bar, 38 centimetre drop bars on a mountain bike does sound pretty silly, because, like, you know, why were wide bars invented in the first place? Well, for stability and control, and that's what the whole bike's designed around. So, you know, why would you go?
What I haven't seen in mountain biking yet, and I'm surprised, is aero flat bars. Like, there are no like bladed flat bars, probably because they'd be too weak.
But everything's going in, like, there's a lot of stuff going integrated. So if you look at like Syncross Nino Schurter's bike, you can't see the rear shock on that because it's all encased.
Yeah.
Like, it's all super integrated, like, aerofoiled front end, and it is happening. It's just not
unfortunately,
as much.
yeah. But again, it's not because, well, like, you know, the honest answer is, it's not because it's faster, it's not because it's more aerodynamic, it's because people want to differentiate this year's product from last year's product, and they want to sell something different. They can't just keep doing the same thing. And then they figured out that people like the clean look. It looks good in photos, it looks good for the sponsors, and, you know, people want to buy stuff.
I think that's it. You can look at it each and like from both perspectives. But we do see, I think we have a slightly jaded view, because we kind of see it every day. Like, literally today, we had someone come in and say, oh, I want this integrated bar and stem. I really like the look of it. It's like, well, we can't achieve your position. And if you want to travel with your bike, if you want to be able to adjust your position and test it, and maybe give your bike some longevity, then why not go with a two-piece system? You're going to win a race? Probably not. Does it really matter?
And also, you can't go fast on your current completely integrated cockpit because the bike doesn't fit you.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? You want to go faster. A few cables flying around is not really going to make a difference.
So we do see the result of, like, you know, people are looking at what is available, what people are riding in the pro peloton and whatever, and that does influence your decision of what is seen as a good bike position or a good bike, a fast bike, a performance bike. And because it's accessible, people are like, yeah, I'll have that. Thank you very much. Over and above, you know, their own health or biomechanics, things like that. And that's kind of what gets us a little bit annoyed. Certainly as people who has to fix all the stuff. That's, you know, the results of these kind of like trends, so on. So, what else have we seen lately that's been annoying us?
Well, the opposite. Well, still on the handlebar theme, is the opposite stuff that seems to be coming out in the gravel world of super flared, super wide,
Will nothing satisfy you?
Handlebars.
It's all about extremes, isn't it?
It's all about extremes,
super narrow.
Well, if you've already got regular, suitable, sensible bars, obviously you want to sell a new product to somebody, you've got to go one way or the other. It's either like super narrow and super long, or super wide and super short.
Yeah.
So
you're talking about Walmer bars.
I'm talking about Walmer bars,
They look ridiculous.
And some other stuff that Ritchie make and things like that. Yeah. But yeah, basically bars, drop bars that have a width measurement that starts with a 5.
I think Walmer bars go up to 6.
Yeah. And
so what's the point of them?
So it's a drop bar which is 60 centimetres wide, whereas a regular bar would be. Like,
so the whole point, Ev, is so you can get a bar bag on.
Right. So touring.
Yeah.
It's for touring bikes.
The theoretical point is obviously if you have, you know, your hands wider apart, you have more leverage. You have to put more input into the bike to make it go round the corner.
So you're slowing down the steering.
So you're slowing down the steering, which theoretically might mean that you have a more predictable bike off-road.
But as we know,
there's many things that go
into
and steering.
The important things are nothing to do with bars, really. That's all about fit.
It's one element of
tiny element.
Yeah. So I reckon the whole reason that gravel bars are getting wider and more flared is for bar bags.
Yeah.
Heard it here first.
And tents.
It's true.
You can fit a tent.
people really like use that as a consideration for like, you know, their handlebar setup over and above biomechanics. Like, can I get my sleeping bag in between the bars?
No, you can't, because your shoulders are 36 centimetres wide, so you need a bar that accommodates your body. This irks me, right? So flared bars, another bone I have to pick with them is the position it puts your shifters in.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that kind of extreme kind of angled in shifter position can play havoc with your wrists and your hands and further up into your elbows and your shoulders and your neck.
So you're talking about drop bars which are designed for gravel
With an extreme flare.
And where the drop is, it's if you're looking at the bar front on, they're kind of canted outwards at an angle. So it's effectively where the shift is attached to the drop parts of the handlebars instead of being vertical, and you can place your hands on top of the shifter, on top of a flat surface. Those shifter hoods are now angled inwards, and so you're resting on the edge of a shifter.
Yeah.
And so, you know, do you want to be resting on a nice wide flat surface or just kind of on the corner of a shifter?
So, from a technical standpoint,
Yours.
A drop bar lever is attached to the bar with a clamp, compression clamp. And the whole point is it doesn't need to be, you don't need to crank it up so much that it's too tight, because the lever action of the bar, of the shifter sitting on the bar, basically when you put pressure on it, it pushes it inwards towards the bar. Like when you, like a shelf bracket. You put weight on it, it pushes in to the wall. Right?
Yeah.
So that's the idea. If you put pressure on the wrong part of that shifter, then you're just it's just going to fall.
Becomes
it's
way
going to
less
slide
stable.
around,
Yeah.
and then that means you have to crank them up tighter for that not to happen, and then you compromise the bars,
crack your bar,
whatever. So it's obviously it's not ideal for the body and also for putting a bike together.
Yeah.
You might as well have flat bars.
Yeah.
And then flat bar levers, which are cheaper. Why wouldn't you?
Well, I think, 2 points. So one, going back to like, I think we need to acknowledge where the flare on gravel bars first came from. And actually, they came from drop handlebar mountain bikes. So back like maybe 15, 20 years ago when I was riding mountain bikes, there was a very strange set of mountain bikers out there who seemed to ride 29er fully rigid, single speed, drop bar mountain bikes. And that was like a niche thing.
You mean it's not new?
It's not new, nothing's new. But yeah, they seem to experiment with it. But the whole idea was that you rode most of the time in the drops. And so the drop parts of the handlebars were supposed to be high enough so that you could just spend all day in that drops rather than on top of the shifter hoods where most road bike positions are. This gives you a secure position when you're riding off-road, because if your hands are in the hook of the drops, then you're less likely for your hands to kind of fly off, you're more secure, and also you've got more leverage against the lever blade of the brakes. So it's easier to brake. You can just hold on to the brakes and you have to use less force to like activate the brakes. So I guess that kind of makes sense. It still feels weird, kind of like riding in the drops, but it kind of made more sense to me as like, you know, maybe that made sense as a kind of off-road position.
So here's a trend I would like to see with handlebars.
Yeah.
Can we normalise the riser drop bar, please?
Normalise it? What do you mean?
Can we
Make more of them.
Can we make more of them? And can we make it more of an accepted thing?
Is it not accepted? Like
No.
Well, there's only a few.
How much resistance do you get when you suggest a hover bar to someone?
I don't know.
Oh, I can't ride that. It looks rubbish. Well, maybe that's my experience.
Yeah, maybe I'm just more convincing.
Maybe, yeah. But I think normalising bars with a little bit of rise to it, for a lot of people, that can be a better option, just to make the position on the drops more usable.
Yeah.
Well, it's going back to the slightly more old school style of drop bar road bike, isn't it? Where you had a higher front end. Like if you had a quill stem, you could have an extender, or we could just have a quill stem that was up quite high. The bars tended, even on race bikes, from like, you know, if you going up till about the mid to late 90s, the bar saddle drop was not that much. They tended to be longer rather than low at the front, right?
Depends what you, again, as always, it just depends what you want to prioritize. You know, the drop bar mountain bike, and you know, prioritizes handling. You're supposed to be in the drops, in control, but like, you know, a gravel bike, what does that prioritize? Don't know.
Nothing.
Just it's a road position on very light gravel.
Yeah, off-road.
It's off-road, and then you get to you start to move over to a lot more cross bike sort of stuff, terrain, which is supposed to be, you know, the whole point of a cross bike is you're supposed to be able to jump on and off it when it gets really gnarly.
It's supposed to be
it's
inappropriate.
So a cross bike is the wrong bike for every job, which is what makes it fun.
Yeah. Although interestingly, and I ride a cross bike to work, a cross bike is the best commuter bike in a city like London, because you never know when you're going to have to jump a curb or get on some gravel, or just go down the marshes or whatever. You know, you've just got this bike that's versatile in all of those things. You can be on the road, you can be off-road. You're not going to, you know, do any really technical.
This is why gravel is like the Wild West. No one really knows what it means because it's such a broad church. It's just like, you know, you can have aero gravel, where all your cables are hidden, and it's basically like a road bike but with wider tyres. So
that's such an offensive term.
Aero gravel.
Gravel.
There's plenty of people who want aero gravel out there.
But that's the thing, people will buy into the aero trends with their bikes, but themselves, because when you buy a bike, you look at a picture of the bike side on, there's no one sitting on it. You're buying the bike because of the way it looks on its own.
Yeah, because like all you can see is the bike. No one can see themselves.
But when you sit on the bike, all of a sudden you just this massive lump on top of it, and you become the limiting factor. Like the limiting factor on any bike is always the rider.
What was the analogy you used earlier? It's like putting Jeremy Clarkson on a time trial bike.
I mean, that's the thing. Like Jeremy Clarkson can drive any car. Well, if he can fit in the bloody thing. You know, because there's the car, oh look, it looks cool, whatever, it's a sports car. Jeremy Clarkson comes plodding along with his big gangly legs, opens a door, shoves himself in like, I don't know, filling sausage stuffing or something, gets in, manages to close the door. But once the door's closed, from the outside, it doesn't matter if Jeremy Clarkson or Lewis Hamilton's driving the car looks like the car, right? So, yeah. But you put him on a bike, you can't hide Jeremy Clarkson.
Can't. No.
The great equaliser, bike riding.
Exactly.
There's no hiding.
No place to hide. Everyone looks ridiculous.
It's
in
only one
spandex.
step from running, right? If you're running,
We can go there if you want.
It's just you.
So here's while we're still on bars, narrower to get more aero. Why not go narrower and higher? So tiny little 33, 32 mil bars with a rise. Surely that's the way. That's the next step in this ridiculous trend that we're going to see.
It sounds suspiciously like turning into aero bars.
Yeah, it sounds like a time trial bike.
So you'll know this. Do you remember the Morf bar?
Yes.
So the Morf bar was designed. Do you know this?
Yeah.
So the Morf bar was designed by I can't remember who, but basically it was a modular kind of handlebar that changed position as you were riding. So you could go from basically a bullhorn bar on a time trial bike. You'd pull a lever, and the whole bar would move into a narrow aero extension position. So there was a chap called Anthony Costas who used to ride this, and he used to crash a lot, if I remember. So
check this out, Ed.
Yeah, so this is a guy called Alan Hovder, who wins the Norseman triathlon quite a lot. And he's got this bar, which, is essentially two
so this is a current thing. This is
a current thing.
Oh, I thought you were talking about something from the 90s.
No, so this is the next step. So it basically looks like a normal bullhorn base bar, and then you pull this lever and the whole thing moves and shifts into a narrow aero bar position.
Okay.
That's basically the next step in this silly narrow handlebar trend.
Put a link in the description to these Morph bars, but they're well worth a look.
So you're hurtling down a hill, you're coming up to a junction, and you're on these narrow things, and then you hit the button and it doesn't work. Right? What do you do?
You crash, obviously.
Yeah, right.
But
oh, that looks gash. That looks really poorly done.
It's proper ghetto. It is well ghetto.
I mean, it's one of those things that in theory, when a designer sits down and thinks of it, they're like, oh, this will be. Yeah, basically you're going from. It's a time trial bike without
the base bar.
The extra, because in a time trial bike, when you get onto the skis, your base bar's still there, getting in the way of the wind, right? So it's solving that problem, but you know what? Nobody else has got a problem.
Well, it's
you're the problem.
Yeah, it's like people invent these products to be able to sell them.
Yeah.
So there are people out there with this product. Should they have that product?
Absolutely.
Probably not.
Absolutely
well, we're going back to the Tesla argument, isn't it? Should you have a self-driving Tesla? No, absolutely. In no way, shape, or form should anyone ever be sitting in a car that's supposedly driving itself and then inevitably goes wrong and kills someone.
But if you're bored and want some shits and giggles, go buy some stuff like this.
It's on a Quintana room as well.
This position looks terrible. Anyway, whatever. But while we're on the subject of terrible time trial positions, there's a bit of a trend in triathlon at the moment for going very long and very high.
Yeah.
And,
why is that?
Because it's quote unquote more aero, but it creates more problems than it solves. So if you look at Magnus Ditlev as an example, right? This guy's like pretty tall, and his bike position is pretty extreme. So I think he's on.
He was the fella who put a dropper post on his triathlon bike for the Nice World Championships.
So basically, there's a trend at the moment where saddle positions are getting so far forward, you're basically
not really sitting on his.
So it's kind of like the way I would liken it would be sprinters in blocks.
Yeah.
So you're basically pushing back onto the pedals rather than pushing down through it, which creates, certain biases towards certain muscles, but also opens your hip angle up a little bit. Yeah. That's the theory. But the consequence of having that forward position is that your front end needs to be really far over out of the front end of the wheel, of the front wheel, and it also needs to be very high to preserve that hip angle. So you're basically lying down in a Superman position with your body weight right over the front wheel, kind of like Chris Boardman's Superman position or Graham Obrey's Superman position. And this that is such a ridiculous bike. And this is we're sort of starting to see this creeping into the fit studio with people going, oh, I want to be forward, I want to be forward. But this puts an inordinate amount of stress on your upper body and your your sort of shoulders and your lats and your core to hold that position and hold that up. And it also creates the worst handling experience on a bicycle that you can imagine.
Your center of gravity is completely in the wrong place.
Exactly. So what is probably pretty fast in a wind tunnel when you're pushing pencils on rollers creates a real world position that you can't use.
Here's the thing about wind tunnels. They're for Formula 1 cars and
That's your favourite cranks there, Ev.
Yeah.
But check out Magnus Ditlev's position on his Scott Plasma because it is
from a technical
ridiculous.
standpoint. At what point are bike manufacturers and the manufacturers of things like aero cockpits going to realise that when you put a pivot point on, brittle, lightweight pieces of crap,
so the amount this thing flexes,
I bet it does. Yeah, I mean,
you watch it and it's flexing like a.
Good that it flexes because if it didn't flex, it would snap definitely. But how many times can it flex before it does
gives
give
up?
way?
Yeah, exactly.
And the problem is, triathletes are
not known for their bike handling.
Not known for their bike handling, and again, this goes back to the argument of you've got to put somebody in a position that not only can they produce power, but they can handle the bike. Because if you can't handle the bike, there's no point putting all your power down going as fast as you can, and then suddenly you come to a roundabout or a U-turn or something, and you just go straight on because you cannot turn the bike.
And that's only 2 considerations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, if you're doing an Ironman like Ditlev is, and your course is like Kona, which is like
Just
It's an out and
basically,
back.
yeah, a long straight road,
With a 180-degree turn at one end of it.
you know, maybe you can get away with it, and that's fine.
Well, here's the other thing. You can get away with it at Kona if you're a semi-pro triathlete, but all the people seeing this on TV,
That ride in
and then
Kent.
they're riding Kent and wherever, and then they decide they want to do that too. That compromises their safety,
Totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
and then it compromises my safety when they ride near me with these ridiculous machines
In Regent's Park.
in Regents or wherever.
Yeah.
you know, like I'm just looking at, I was thinking about the T100, like Sam Laidlow on his.
Has he still got his fairing in his chest?
He's lying down. He's literally, this is like lazy aero.
I thought his aero position actually looked pretty good, but just triathlons are again like the Wild West. There's no UCI regs or anything like that, so people just go crazy trying to, you know, figure out what's best for them.
Well, again, it's all about preparing yourself for the run, isn't it?
Bike for
Yeah.
show, run for dough.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this, so yeah, if you want to listen more about like triathlon positions and so on, listen back to a previous episode. Me and Matt had a big old rant in the car,
We did.
but I'll leave a link. Any more? What else is on the list here? Any other silly things that we've seen? I mean, I mean, if we're talking about kind of forward positions on tri bikes, what about road bikes? I mean, everyone
Yeah.
seems to be in a forward saddle position these days.
Well, it was interesting watching the tour, wasn't it? Just looking at how far forward people are
Yeah,
relative to their feet.
yeah. I mean, actually looking at Pog's position relative to when he was back in 2021, he was still riding Colnago. He was back on Campac back then, I think.
Blah.
But his position looks so much better.
Yeah.
Like he was more neutral spined, like longer. You know, his whole position was kind of a bit more neutral, I guess. But he's gone more extreme. And there's a nice little quote from our friend Chris at Strength for Endurance the other day. So watching one of his videos, and he said that most of the athletes that we watch and see and listen to may be optimal for their sport, but not optimal for life.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important to kind of keep in the back of our minds as we're watching all these guys on the TV. And their positions are just really extreme. And maybe they're optimal for a very particular specific purpose. Like I know Pog it changes his saddle angle depending on what stage is coming up, so that he can be optimal at the time that really matters the most. But you can be suboptimal for a lot of the race, because that being optimal for that one moment is more important, because that will win in the race.
Yeah.
So, you know, what's the cost of that? And, you know, later on, don't know yet.
Well,
But
you know, also they cross the line and then they're straight into the bus, and then they get that evening they get a leg massage and you know, all the recovery and you know, all that sort of stuff, which you don't get if you leave the office at 4 p.m, go and do some laps and then go home and veg.
Who leaves the office at 4?
You'd be surprised, mate.
But what is interesting though is that there's been some chat going on about especially Mathieu van der Poel and how, and Wout van Aert as well to a certain extent, of how much longevity they're going to have in the sport, because they are just going so hard, like so often. Like, you know, if they ride a full cyclocross season, then it's straight into the classics, and then they've got jobs to do in the Grand Tours. Like the season's getting so long now.
well, you saw Van Aert and Van der Poel in the Tour. They did
Yeah,
like
they were
nothing.
cooked.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely done.
But it's like the question of longevity and what is the cost of these more extreme kind of positions? Yeah, you can, how old's Pog? 12? Like you probably, like when you're that young, you can probably get away with it.
Yeah,
But absorb it. But what's going to happen when he's 35?
Well, he'll be
You know.
retired by the time he's like 34, 33.
Yeah. So but that's the thing. It's like you know, Mark Cavendish is, you know, late 30s. He's still doing it.
I think the fact that
Slightly less extreme, maybe.
I think the fact that he's a sprinter,
that helps.
and you know, it's like he's not racing that much during the year.
Yeah.
He's not doing that many races compared to somebody who's maybe going for GC on, or Pogacar doing the Giro and the Tour, winning both, and then going for the World Champs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone criticising him for not doing the Olympics can go.
But I think, like, you know, if you go back
ditch.
like a couple of generations and look at people like maybe Cadell Evans, Chris Horner, those guys who were doing it well into their 40s at a very competitive level as well. Yeah, they weren't winning Grand Tours, but they were still...
Did they start as early as the guys now? I think they didn't start quite as early, so...
But that's the thing, is like we need to take on as like amateurs, it's like, right, what is the cost of, you know, pushing these extremes?
Yeah.
And is it, you know, we always say health is a prerequisite of performance. Is it worth compromising the health for that 1% extra performance? That's not for me to say yes or no, but you've got to have a long, hard think about it. What is the cost of what it is that you're about to do?
Yeah. Well, explain to somebody why high performance components on a bike don't last as long as something that's heavier and more robust. That's the same thing, you know, if you're going to push your performance, you're not going to be able to do it for as long a period.
Yeah, exactly.
You're going to burn out. So.
Yeah, and this is where the phrase optimal for sport versus, or professional sport, shall we say, versus optimal for life comes into play. You know, we as people of life want to enjoy our sport for as long as possible. We have to do other jobs as well. So, yeah, maybe the pros aren't always the best role models to follow, but again, they're there to inspire us, aren't they? To, you know. Yes, Matthew.
I have another silly trend.
Another trend
I've just thought of.
All right, go for it.
Silly shoes.
Silly shoes.
What kind of shoes are you talking about?
So shoes are a massive bone of contention for us in our day-to-day line of work.
Cycling shoes.
Cycling shoes, yeah, because people's feet are trashed generally, and we squash our feet into these tiny little stiletto cycling shoes in the name of fashion. And again, it's that kind of health versus performance, isn't it? Like, you know, we've got these like super nice, like, you know, pristine, crisp white shoes. I won't name any particular brands, but yeah, you know, we see them on the TV and in the Tour and in the magazines. No one reads magazines now, but you know what I mean. And we, you know, slam our feet into these tiny little stiletto-like shoes, and that is a silly trend that I think needs to go away. And I think we should take a more pragmatic approach to shoes and match the shoe to the shape of the foot for optimal foot function rather than fashion. And that annoys me. And it's a silly trend and it needs to bugger off.
You know what, though? If running can't do it, what hope has cycling got in producing shoes that actually fit proper shaped feet?
Running can do it if you look hard enough.
But it's the same for cycling.
Yeah,
there are.
There's a problem. It shouldn't be a niche. It shouldn't be a niche.
Yeah.
It should be the standard.
But
right?
as you love to say, it's the marketing.
Yeah.
And it is, isn't it?
Yep.
You know, if we take running as an example, Nike are the best marketing company on the face of the earth.
Yeah.
And everyone's cramming their feet into these Vaporflies and Alphaflies and like just doing themselves an absolute
just look like
mischief.
you're wearing ice cream cones.
Yeah, literally. And you can hear people clopping coming up behind you. Like,
I can't
from
tell if it's a runner or somebody cosplaying.
Is it a horse? Is it someone who's like, you know, what is it? And it's the same in cycling. It's like, you know, we get marketed to, if you like, these super nice looking shoes which are like pristine white and they look great on you know, in the sunshine
on
the
the pedestal in the
France.
shop.
Yeah, or you know, on the spinny plinth that we have in the studio. But there's the thing, it's like if it doesn't work with your foot and your mechanics and your like foot shape and your foot structure, then there's no way it's going to be comfortable. So that's the thing that I just thought of that irks me, is fashion shoes rather than functional shoes.
And, well, I think on that case, like the amount of people that will compromise an aspect of their shoe fit, or be so ready to compromise an aspect of their shoe fit for I don't know, ease of buying, fashion, whatever it is just like, it's like astronomical. Like just almost every single shoe that we see.
But people are willing to buy a bike that you've both kind of actually, like, basically said, no, you absolutely cannot fit this bike, and they're still like, but I really want it.
Yeah, that's true too. I mean, like,
but that's like the emotional side of the brain versus the practical side of the brain, isn't it?
But like, there's still, I guess maybe because we can get away with it on the day-to-day level of like the shoes that we wear out on the street. You know, if it doesn't quite fit you, you know, it's not the end of the world. But I think cycling has to be treated slightly differently, because at the end of the day, if you're wearing stiff cycling shoes, they're a performance item. They are there to help you increase your performance, to increase your comfort, increase your endurance, etc. So why spend the money on a performance item that's not quite right, and knowingly so? So the most common thing is people buying a size up in their shoes, so it gets longer as well as wider because the size below didn't fit them widthways.
So should we take a leaf out of your average, like, you know, office worker, out of their book? You've got like, if you've got like a woman, I used to, when I commuted like on the tube and whatever, I'd see women all the time going into the office, and they'd be wearing like, you know, like Nike Air, like pumps, whatever, like trainers. They got their office get up, and they're wearing those, and then they've got a massive handbag, and in their handbag they've got like a pair of Louboutins or something like stiletto or whatever, some heeled shoes that they put on when they get into the office. They don't wear those because they're purely a fashion item. They're just for the look. They're not comfortable. They do not want to be walking to work or running to work in them. So maybe people should just be buying everything twice. You buy the stuff that you want, the stuff that looks cool to wear at the weekends for like a 1 hour cafe ride, and then the rest of the time when you're actually doing real training, have a bike that fits you, have some shoes that are suitable.
Dress up.
Dress up at the weekends, man.
Dress up at the weekends. I don't know, that's one way to think about it.
That's one way to do
Buy
it.
2 bikes.
Yeah.
Get yourself...
The bike you should ride and the bike you
Get yourself
want.
your Sunday bike for the short cafe rides. It doesn't have to be that comfortable because you're literally just rolling up to the cafe.
We've talked about this before, haven't we, on commute bikes versus weekend bikes.
Right.
He's probably...
But the people are doing it the wrong way because their commute, like they might have like a 15-20 minute commute, and then and they'll do it. They might do it on a sensible bike or whatever, or they'll get a Lime bike or something. And then at the weekend they go out for 6 hours on a extreme race bike that they can barely reach the bars, you know.
But I think it's like, if, like Wei was saying, if you're trying to, you know, purchase a performance item and like shoes, and that item is hindering potentially your performance because it doesn't function well enough for the purpose it's supposed to fill, then maybe that's something worth looking at.
In every other walk of life, your luxury item is the thing that it's just for special occasions. It's just for short bursts. You know, you have like an MG or something, you have some fancy car, you just drive it around at the weekends for a very, very short time because it's got really bad gas mileage and it's not very comfortable. And then in the week you got your Mondeo. Or a car that exists
What you're
now.
trying to say is, like, be honest with yourself. What kind of bike rider are you? Do you want to spend 4 or 5 hours on a bike, or you want to spend 15 minutes on a bike and make your choices accordingly?
I want to spend 15 minutes on a bike and go and have coffee. That's what I want to do.
Yeah. All right. I think that's enough silly trends for today. I think we've vented our thoughts.
Tune in next time for tubeless and hookless rims.
Oh my God, there's just so many things that we need to talk about. But anyway, hopefully there are some takeaways in there. Maybe not. Maybe you just enjoyed listening to us bladder on about it.
Or maybe you didn't, and that's fine too.
But that's cool too. But thanks for listening if you got this far. If you've got any suggestions for us to talk about on the podcast, if you want us to kind of pick apart anything?
I think we should give away prizes at the end.
So
still listen.
Any silly trends that we've missed?
Yeah. Tell us.
Always happy to talk about anything bike related.
Literally
anything you want.
Anything.
All right. Until next time. Ride happy. Bye.
Suffering from numb hands, tingling toes, and any other persistent discomforts when you ride? These are all signs that your bike fit could be improved. If you're bike fit curious, get in touch with Way or Matt by emailing info@foundation.fit or finding them on Instagram at FDN_bikefit. Finally, for all your bike servicing needs, custom dream bike or hand-built wheels, go to www.frequencycycleworks.com or find me on Instagram at frequencycycleworks. Until next time, keep on spinning.